10 ways to grow thick and wide. 1. Complete compound lifts. You need to perform exercises that target the largest mass of muscle, he explains. You need to perform exercises that target the largest mass of muscle. Squats in particular are one of the best exercises for developing overall size, he says. Accessory lifts like the bent-over dumbbell raise or lateral raise are important to this whole conversation, too, but you need to involve multiple joints and big muscle groups to really transform your physique. These 4 compound moves will forge massive biceps and triceps. Skinny guys can have abs in no time at all and with minimal effort. But developing thickness in your back and chest, more specifically your traps, delts, and pecs, really translates into strength and advanced fitness. Guys tend to focus too much on the beach muscles, the things they can see in the mirror, Aunt says. But neglecting exercises that have withstood the test of time won't help you create that broad, dominant frame. And you don't have to get overly creative either. 2. Hit all 3 heads of your shoulder. Broad shoulders don't just cap off a well-balanced physique, they arguably make a well-balanced physique. Bulking and bulletproofing the shoulders will make you a better, healthier lifter, and reduce your risk for injury during back and chest exercises. So, when you're trying to add width and 3-dimensional muscle, you need to remember there are 3 heads to the deltoids: anterior, medial, and posterior. I see a lot of people ignore the posterior and just hope it gets worked enough when they train their back, and specifically train the interior during chest and shoulder press variations, but, honestly, the medial and posterior delts add a tremendous amount of size, shape, and width to your physique, Aunt explains. Putting a good program together still comes down to doing your basic exercises correctly: 1-arm rows, shoulder press, Arnold press, lateral raises, reverse pec stack, bent over raises, shrugs. And don't stress about using barbells over dumbbells, he adds. You won't get any bigger using a barbell versus dumbbells, or kettlebells, and your muscles don't know the difference. It's all about applied resistance. 3. Don't sacrifice form for weight. If there's one piece of advice you should take away from this list and implement forever, it's this: don't surrender form for the big number lift. If you're a beginner in the gym, take the time, effort, and money to meet with a personal trainer and learn the fundamentals of form for each major lift. And if you've been lifting for years, it doesn't hurt to ask a trainer or buddy to watch your form from time to time. For exercises like rows, deadlifts, and squats, it's important to maintain a neutral spine base to prevent injury when you go heavier, Aunt says. What that means is you want to keep the 3 natural curves: your cervical or neck region is bent inward, thoracic or upper back region is bent outward, and the lumbar or lower back region is bent inward / in your spine as you complete these movements. This is where it's important to have an experienced coach watch you. If they witness your good form, and you can tell how the movement should feel when executed properly, you're more apt to replicate that going forward. Lifting properly goes beyond biomechanics, too. Focus on range of motion. You want to make sure you're going down deep enough on squats, not bouncing the bar off your chest for bench press, and not jerking the bar off the ground during deadlifts. Heavy is relative to being able to maintain good form, Aunt says. Heavy is relative to being able to maintain good form. 4. Work 6 to 12 reps per set. For hypertrophy and muscle size, training volume makes a big difference, Aunt says. That's why he suggests completing 6 to 12 reps per set. That range works incredibly well, but don't get too hung up on it. Your end goal is overloading your muscles. Research shows higher rep ranges, 30 reps for a set, for example, can give you hypertrophy effects. You just need to take it to momentary muscular failure. The one caveat: that workout will take you 3 times as long as a 10-rep set, and researchers have never shown larger reps to be better. At best, giant sets are just as good as heavy weight and fewer reps, Aunt explains. Ideally, it's best to switch your reps and sets up. More on this on the next slide. 5. Periodize your training. Periodization is a fancy term for any plan that allows you to make long-term gains while sidestepping plateaus and injuries along the way. When I work with athletes who are trying to build size, I tell them you can't do the same thing all the time, Aunt says. But the same goes for any guy, amateur and professional alike. 6. Schedule day loading weeks. Every 7th or 8th week of training, take a week off to rebound and rest. Day loading weeks relieve stress from your joints, promote overall recovery, and, when you come back to the gym, set you up for even more success. The mantra "no days off" is an ego trip, not a sign of power or peak fitness. 7. Perform push-pull programs. By switching to a classic push-pull split, you're going to seriously simplify your training and see better, quicker gains, especially when it comes to bulking your upper body. Here's why it works. In between those lifts, you give your antagonist muscle groups recovery time, Aunt says. In between those lifts, you give your antagonist muscle groups recovery time. It's a good fundamental routine that Aunt recommends for the majority of lifters. 8. Parse on pro bodybuilder programs. Most guys look at a program they see a pro bodybuilder using and think it's their magic bullet to growing bigger and thicker in the shortest amount of time. Here's the problem. Actually, multiple problems / with that logic. Pro bodybuilders split their body up to 7 different ways. They train every day. They probably have a genetic advantage over you, and they might have a chemical advantage over you, Aunt says. It's not feasible for the everyday lifter to put themselves in these conditions. 9. Get sufficient protein, but don't overeat. The way to go: slow, chronic progress during which you're building lean mass without feeling the need to bulk and eat until you can't anymore, Aunt says. He recommends aiming for at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. The way to go: slow, chronic progress during which you're building lean mass without feeling the need to bulk and eat until you can't anymore. 10. Get some sleep. If you don't sleep, you don't grow, Aunt stresses. Nighttime is when all the recovery takes place. It's when your growth hormone is at its peak, and when cortisol starts to get suppressed.